What's going on, everyone, and welcome to my in-depth guide on how to have the best, if not the perfect, start to Generation Zero. Normally when you start Generation Zero, you're limited to low-tier guns, so I went through the effort of putting together an easy-to-complete route where you can find yourself a full loadout of exceptional to special guns right from the beginning of the game. This route will take you about 2 hours to complete, so it is a bit of a time sink, but its payoff is well worth the time you spend. Having a loadout like this right from the start of the game allows you to get to end game play much faster, earn levels easier, take on almost every single story mission with ease, and most of all get you to the point where you can start farming experimental guns the fastest. So essentially this route has a few sections to it that I will have in the description down below. You can start this route from any point in the game, so use the timestamps to figure out where you should jump in, or start your game from scratch and get a better start than what you previously had. The main thing that I really wanted to reduce in this route is how RNG affects it. Generation Zero is filled with many random variables, from machine spawns, machine patrols, and loot spawns inside of crates and bags. So first off, I routed out each weapon, which will be in the description down below. And then after that, all that was left was figuring out how to make the most optimal way you can get to each weapon. We'll start with some necessary setup to ensure that you have the best you can get in the fastest time possible before making your way out of the archipelago region. Then we'll hit the journey section, where you will be hitting up locations for excellent loot in your travels, and even after you've completed the run yourself, these locations will benefit you greatly throughout the game, offering you the opportunity to keep all supplies stocked and easily farmed. Then we'll get to the fun part, collecting the guns. This part is the fastest part of the route, so if you feel you're capable, you might even want to start this route from just this point, though I highly advise at least starting from the journey section. As I said before, all timestamps will be in the description below, so use them as you need to. Now with the introduction out of the way, let's get this started from where it all begins, at Ittervik. Now we'll need to complete the first 3 missions of the game to get some necessary experience points. The experience routing is really simple and easy to complete, requiring minimal combat to get all the levels you need as you proceed through this little adventure here. I wanted to reduce any potential for combat as much as I possibly could to ensure people of all skill levels could take this on with minimal risk of wasting resources in the process. The EXP routing starts right once you reach the house here. On the left hand side of the house you'll find a gnome, and as you go through this route you'll want to gather all the collectibles I grabbed to make sure you have the experience needed to level up. Inside we'll go through the mission objectives here, gathering the flashlight, the molder, and the medkits on the table. Then we'll go to the living room and pick up the adrenaline that spawns just inside the bookshelf here. I advise you to loot all the bags and crates you come across, as the more loot you have, the better you'll be. So then we're going to go into the left room and loot that backpack there, and then we'll head upstairs, grab another mission marker, and head into the bathroom for our second adrenaline. Then we're going to head into the final room for our third adrenaline, the map and the binoculars, and then we'll head out from the house here. So once we're outside, we're going to loot the pier, but before that, we'll hop up on this little concession stand here for our last 2 sure spawn adrenaline, a rusty clock and a dilapidated silencer. All of this will benefit you greatly as you head on through the next little bit. So, next up, we are going to go through a little bit of movement tech here. I go much more in depth on these in other videos that will be linked down in the description below, but essentially the first bit is called stamina jumping. Stamina jumping is basically jumping while you're sprinting to maintain your stamina. The speed difference between full speed sprint and your out of breath sprinting is really big, so you'll want to stamina jump as much as possible to make sure you're moving as fast as you can, especially in the early stages here. The next bit of movement tech is crouch walking. So what you do for this is you crouch intermittently as you you walk. It allows you to move quickly but still avoid detection. As long as you keep the stealth indicator white, you're good to go. Yellow will alert the machines to your location, and red means they'll be attacking you. This bit takes a certain touch, so don't mind it if it goes wrong. The better you get at stealth walking, the better you'll be at avoiding machines and getting to where you need to go efficiently. So now we're going to loot the police car, and inside this police car you can find a good dump of 32 ACP rounds. But you'll specifically want to loot the police member in the car to hopefully get some 9mm rounds for the clock, as it will help you take down the first runner easily. If you don't get 9mm rounds due to randomness, don't worry too much, as you'll have enough ACP rounds to take down at least a good dozen runners. Now, with the recent changes to difficulty, on any difficulty above adventure mode, you can't one-shot a runner without a stronger weapon. So, to work with what you have, toss a flare or a firecracker to distract the runner before your alert meter goes red. Then, take the runner down with shots to the gas tank to reduce the ammo you spend killing it. Now, the game tells you to follow the road, but we aren't going to do that, as it's pretty slow and potentially will have you fighting more machines than you need to this early on. Instead, we'll head through the forest towards our next objective, Iboholmen Church. And here you can see me making good use of that stealth walking. So again, just crouching intermittently, and you can kind of see the detection bar here, and just a couple scenes here. So basically, as the detection bar is white, you'll want to go back to crouching, and when the detection bar is not on the screen anymore, you'll want to return back to walking, so that way you can be avoiding detection but still moving much faster than you would be moving if you were just crouching the whole way. Now, as we come into the church here, you're going to want to pick up the note sitting on this table here for the Old Beton mission. This is going to be the third of 3 missions that you need in order to get the experience early on to continue with this route. So, when you go through the church, make sure that you loot up everything that you can. All of the flares and radios and diversion tactics will really help you out in the long run. Then come off to the whiteboard and pick up the message there to finish off the sanctuary mission. And then, for the final Old Beton mission, we're going to come up here to the steeple, climb the steeple, and grab the shotgun to complete the last of 3 missions that you'll need to complete here during this run. Now, we're going to go over the route that you're going to take to proceed onward here. So basically, you're going to want to come across this little pier area and come up to this kind of hill over here. And that's where you're going to pick up your next sidearm. Then we're going to come along the coast here, avoiding all machines, till we get to a small little campsite along the way. This little campsite will give you a bunch of ticks that will give you the small amount of experience you need on top of the experience you've acquired already to hit level 1. Then we're going to come past Stenhaga and avoid Stenhaga entirely, just obtaining the location to get a little bit more experience. And after avoiding Stenhaga, we'll come down through the little forest area, cut across to the T section right before the farm area right there, and then we're going to come down and around the wharf area to pick up our next weapon. So that might sound like a lot, but we're going to walk through all of it here. So next up, you're going to want to go inside the truck on the left-hand side right here, and inside of here you're going to pick up a cassette tape, which will give you a little bit more experience to help you out along the way. Also, do not ignore the dead soldier over by this car. Go loot him up and you'll be able to pick up some decent ammo to carry you onwards. Then we're going to go across that little pier area, as I had said, and come on over here to pick up our sidearm. You could take down this runner really easily, just using the shotgun that you got from the old Benton mission. And you'll find a dead soldier over here, and in his hand is a worn molar. And this is part of the reason why you want to primarily use the clock up until this point, so that way when you get that worn molar, you'll be able to have it fully stocked and loaded as you head on here. So now we're going to head along the coast, as I had said, and just kind of avoid all the machines we can and make our way over to the little military camp here. You're going to find a tick sitting on this rock outcrop right here, right beside a dead police member, and you'll just want to take him down really quickly. And then to take down all of the ticks sitting inside this military camp, you'll want to throw a flare just outside the entrance. Now you'll see here that all the ticks pretty much just killed themselves off one another, so it makes for a really easy little fight here, and then all you'll have left is one last tick. These guys can be pretty wiggly, so you'll want to take a bit of a step back if you haven't killed it yet, and just take it out from a little bit of a distance here. Then you're going to want to loot through this whole little military camp here. So at this point, you might have a level, but if you don't, you'll get that level right once you reach stenhaga. And you'll want to dump that level straight into your stamina amount. Being able to move fast and have as much stamina as you need is really efficient for this route. So then, again, we're going to follow along the coast and then cut across and aim right for the middle of that T intersection right there. And we're going to cut across it. So basically, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to avoid as much enemy engagement as possible. So that way, again, we're keeping all of our resources for later on in the run, because you might run into some further resistance along the way. So you can see here that we ran into a hunter, so if you do run into a hunter along this route, just keep a low profile, stay to the hunter's back, and it won't notice you. And then we're cutting across here, right across that T intersection, as I had said, and we're coming down to the wharf for our next weapon here. So when you come down to the wharf, you'll want to kind of loot through the wharf as much as possible, and then come around the hill here for an Easter egg weapon that is a Dark Souls reference that I had discovered about a year ago. And so you'll want to grab this rifle because it will be one of the most high-powered weapons that you can get this early on in the game, and will basically be your machine killer at this point. If you were lucky and managed to get yourself a silencer, a hunting rifle silencer along the way, you'll definitely want to equip that so that, again, you can keep a low profile. Now we're going to come up the wharf here to the relay beacon, and we're going to take that relay beacon down with the shotgun. It takes 1 to 2 shots from the shotgun because the spread from the shotgun is random. So just punch that beacon in the face 1 or 2 times, and you'll be able to take it down really easy and get yourself a nice little net of experience. Now, right after we kill that relay beacon, we aren't going to fight the runners that are defending it. Instead, we're just going to move onwards here, again for speed and efficiency, and you'll want to pick up that med kit from that car if you can. Cars are incredibly dangerous to stick around, so definitely try to use situational awareness as much as possible when you go through this section. If you're getting really hammered down upon by the runners, then avoid the car. So after we come across the bridge here, we're going to ignore Saltholmen, kind of come down the road past the little soccer area right there, and we're going to follow this red road right up the hill here, and our next location is right at the center of that mountain. At this location, we're going to pick up our next weapon, which will be our first assault rifle, and our only assault rifle in this run, actually. And this basically, again, is just kind of a safety net in case if you do manage to get pinned down by machines along the way here. So right here off at Seggestaskogen, you're going to want to, again, loot this entire place so that way you're getting the supplies you need, and then you're going to pick up your AI-76 or AK-47 off of this dead resistance member here. You'll probably want to equip this just to be safe and just to have it on hand in case if you do run into any machines along the next little section of this route. So from here, we're going to be making a straight beeline for the Saltholmen Church. And you can get to Saltholmen Church by crossing the bridge into the mainland. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, again, follow the coast to avoid the machines as much as possible. Come across the bridge here and fight a hunter along the way. That will be a really easy hunter kill, actually. And then come down the road right here to this kind of rectangular building, because that is the next location that you want to come to. You'll want to be a little bit careful around this area, as hunters can spawn and runners can spawn in this location, and so you'll again just want to avoid as much combat as you possibly can. If there are machines spawned in the area, try to use the car here for a little bit of coverage, and then you're going to want to aim for the car in the middle of the road here, because that's going to be your quickest method to taking down this hunter over here. If the car itself doesn't kill the hunter, you'll be able to then take it down with just a couple more bullets from your hunting rifle here. As you're running down the road, if you're getting shot at, try to zigzag a little bit so that way you are avoiding the bullets as best as possible. And when you get to the edge of the bridge, you'll again want to be careful, because there's a handful of live cars around here that are incredibly dangerous. Just try to jump over them and move past them as quickly as possible so that you don't accidentally get caught in an explosion by them. And then afterwards, do a little bit of looting if you can, but if not, don't worry about it too much. You should have a rather reliable amount of loot at this point, and just head on over to Iboholmen Church. So for this run, this actually was a rather imperfect run, and I didn't want to show a perfect run actually for this video here, because in the end, Generation Zero has so many random factors that it's pretty much impossible to account for them all. So instead, I decided to show a run where I got hammered down by tons of machines, just to show that even if things go wrong, as long as again you can use that situational awareness to your advantage, you'll be able to get out of the situation relatively easily. So when you come to the church here, if there are tons of machines, just try to make your way into the church really quickly just for that safe house. There is also another collectible in here that is really nice to pick up for a little bit of experience along the way. So for me, I kind of foolishly decided to try to fight it out, because I thought maybe if I killed off all these machines, it would be a lot easier to then make progress towards the mainland. But that was actually a bit of a mistake on my part. And so if you do manage to get pinned down here, try to use something like a radio to gather all the machines at one end of the church and escape out the back door of the church, because a lot of times that can be a lot more effective than trying to duke it out with minimal gear and minimal weapons. And so basically, after this, our goal is to make our progress into the little farmland area right next to here, and cross the farmlands and potentially take down a beacon as long as it's spawned. There are a couple times where the beacon hasn't spawned for me, but it spawned more times often than not, so you can reliably take down that beacon along the way. Now, luckily enough for me, this Seeker actually wound up kind of helping me out unintentionally, because he drew all of the machines away from the relay beacon, allowing it to be clear and easy for me to take down. But if the machines are off at the relay beacon, you'll again want to use diversion tactics by throwing a flare or a firework of some sort just around the beacon to distract the machines, as you then take down the beacon and continue on your way. Again, just try to avoid all unnecessary combat. Don't be stupid like me. don't risk your time and waste your time by fighting it out with machines, and just make progress and just kind of push on and out from the archipelago, because you're better off for it. Having these dilapidated weapons kind of is a real hindrance to the player. Dilapidated weapons are really weak in this game, so the whole objective of this run is to simply get the exceptional and special weapons at the end of the run. But you can see here, there's the beacon. Took 2 shots because of that shotgun randomness, and so taking it down nets you a fresh 1,000 experience points, which will help you get your second level. Now you're going to want to follow the road into the mainland. Again, this area is rather treacherous. It's kind of a bottleneck point where you don't have much of an option for what route you can take. So you'll just want to come through here, and if there are machines here, there's a little trick you can do to deal with them that also is incredibly useful if you're damaged up to this point. So what you can do is you can actually just quit to menu, which might be viewed as a bit of an exploit, but it's incredibly useful, at least for this run. So when you quit to menu, it will reset machine spawns, and it will also reset your health. So you'll just want to quit to menu once you've unlocked that safe house, and then pop right back into the game and continue with your run here. Now, this location is an excellent early game location because you get so much loot from this little camp here. There are tons of downed machines, tons of downed resistance fighters, a whole bunch of boxes and stuff. And then also, if you come up the hill here, you're actually able to find downed hunters, which will give you a whole bunch of 7.62 rounds for your AI-76 for moving on with this run here. And then also on top of that, from the resistance members, you have a chance of finding a sticky flare, which will serve a huge purpose later on in this run. Now at this point, you've finished the setup, which means that you should be fully stocked and equipped to start the journey. So now that you've got the guns that you're going to need for the rest of your run, and as many supplies as you could keep gathered throughout the setup there, you're going to now start the journey process. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to head to the safe house named Forsteborg on the eastern coast here, and head through the little dilapidated buildings. And then you're going to want to pick up that safe house and continue along the river there in order to make it to the bridge. And once you've made it to the bridge, you can start making your real headway up towards the north. As well, along the way, you're going to wind up picking up one of the best locations in the game to gather and farm loot at. So your journey along the river here is actually really easy and really quiet. Not many machines spawn in this area at all, so you can usually make it through here without any encounters at all. Out of the 7 runs I didn't encounter any machines along this route at any point in time. The only point where you could potentially run into machines is at the foot of the bridge there. But avoiding them is rather easy because you can just make your way across the bridge. So now what you're going to want to do once you've crossed the bridge is you're going to want to head past a small little village called Lilla and head kind of around the little mountain you see there. And along this route, if you're having any trouble finding your direction, place down a waypoint on the map because that's going to really help you with finding your way across this massive map. You could also head around Lilla just along the river as well, but it's much faster to head straight through Lilla and then around that little mountain there. If you've managed to gain a second perk at this point, a second skill point, you're going to want to put that into your running speed because again, the faster you are, the more efficient you'll be at escaping machines and also at making the distance traveled not be so time consuming. So really the stamina amount and the running speed are incredibly useful, as well as stamina regeneration later on if you manage to pick up a third skill point along the way. After you're done this route, you can start then focusing on your combat skills and any other skills that you need, but along this route I highly advise utilizing everything you can to be as fast as possible along this route here. So when you go through Lilla, you're likely to encounter some machines, but escaping them is really easy. You can use that small little mountain that you're going around here to break line of sight from the machines, and without line of sight they won't be able to pursue you as easily. And then once you've made your way around the mountain, it's just up the hill here to the house on the right, and this is Captain's Villain, which is a perfect safe house to access one of the best locations in the game for loot, Nyhamnen. Down at Nahamnen, you can find yourself tons of shipping containers, and all of these shipping containers give you access to toolboxes and ammo boxes and backpacks, and you'll be able to farm tons of ammo and medkits and everything that you need. So if you're feeling a little light on supplies at this point in time, you might want to stop off down at Nahamnen for a quick farming session. But if not, you can just always leave that till later after you finish the route, so that way when you start the game, you're going to be fully stocked and loaded. So now for the journey, this is the what I like to call the 5-mile bike ride. You're going to come through Ostervik City and come around the pier here. And as you come around the pier, you're then going to want to follow this main road all the way up north. This is a huge bike ride, and there are tons of potential roaming patrols of machines. But as long as you're riding your bike and you're just biking like hell, you'll be able to make it past all of those machines relatively easily. And then once you get to this little point right before this farmstead here, you're going to want to hop off your bike and come over to this location that I'm showing off here. This is a place called Littorp, and it's going to be your safe house up in the north for a small fraction of time, but is an incredibly essential safe house to grab just in case if anything goes wrong and you need to respawn off at a safe house. So as you bike along this route here, you're going to want to really pay attention to machine spawns. If you run into anything that you can't overcome, just use the same quit to menu feature that I had explained before, so that way you can reset your health and reset any sort of potential adversaries that you'll reach along the way, because they'll make it seriously difficult to bike along this route. Now, one of the things you're going to face once you get into Ostervik over here is big city lag. So the easiest way to avoid that big city lag is to just not look at the big city. As long as you aren't looking at it, it isn't fully rendered in here in Generation 0. So you can actually avoid a lot of that big city lag as you go along the pier by just looking out into the water. Again, that requires a little bit of precision while you're riding your bike, but if you run into big city lag, it's not too much of a problem. It just slows down the process a little bit. Then afterwards, you're going to want to bike around the mountain, as I had showed in the route before, and just kind of follow this road as fast as you can. You can hit around 40 to 42 kilometers an hour on your bike, so you can go really fast along this route. Now, Leerberget was a bit of a challenge for me because I found a Phoenix tank and a Phoenix harvester and a whole bunch of crazy machines here. So if you run into any sort of resistance like this and you're all the way off at Leerberget or further, just hop off your bike and utilize your own mobility to avoid as much damage as possible. One of the hard things about the heavy machines in this game is that at this current point in time, they're incredibly accurate. So you'll just want to run like hell if you encounter any of these machines to avoid potentially dying in the process here. If things are too overwhelming for you, you can always quit to menu, go all the way back to Captainsville, and start your run again, and hopefully not encounter any machines along the way. If you do have to abandon your bike, it slows things down a little bit, but that's why I personally think that the running speed perk is so useful for this route here. So you're going to want to continue along the road here, all the way off to the north coast. So this part of the run will be relatively uneventful. You'll just be sprinting along the road, so I just kind of sped things up super fast here at this point. But once you get here to Littorp, it can sometimes have some machine spawns, but most of the time you're going to find this place relatively empty. I only encountered machine spawns myself 1 out of 7 times that I tested this run. Then you'll want to make your way across the little bridge to the tiny little island that I showed you there, and that's going to be your next safe house. You might want to loot a variety of loot boxes as they're spawned in here, but now we're getting to the really fun part of the run, the payoff. Alright, so now for the fun part of the run, the point where we get the payoff for all this setup. So we're going to be coming on over to Arkelstorp over here, a lighthouse, and this is going to be the first really good gun that we're getting out of this run. So we're just going to jog our way over there and kind of, again, follow the coastline to avoid as many machine spawns as we possibly can. There is a tank on the main road to Arkelstorp, so instead of fighting that tank and going through him, we're going to go around him and take the hill upwards over here. Once you take the hill upwards, you can come down through this little ditch area, and hopefully you guys won't get caught out by machines like I did. But if you do, just continue on your way, as the machines will likely not follow you over to Arkelstorp. Now, when you're over at Arkelstorp, you're going to have to actually take down the runners that are in this area, which can be a little bit tough considering how underleveled and under-equipped you are, but as long as you use the buildings to your advantage, use all of the small EMP boxes on the buildings to your advantage, and use some guerrilla tactics, you'll be able to get through this fight rather easily. The main reason why we're taking down these doggos is because when you're trying to leave this place, if you've left the doggos around, it sometimes can cause a lot more issues than trying to take them out outright. There are 2 rocket doggos in this area, so you'll have to really pay attention to those rockets, as they're going to be the thing that's going to hurt you the most. But yeah, if you want to, you can avoid the dogs and try to use stealth tactics to get through here. Much easier than just trying to be stealthy here. Now, once you've taken down the doggos outside, you're going to want to go and head on up the lighthouse. And this is where you're going to pick up a fancy 4-crown PVG, or 50 cal. And it's going to be probably the most powerful gun you're going to have for quite a while here in this game. So if you don't have any sticky flares at this point, you can always use just a typical flare, as I'm going to show you here. But if you do have a sticky flare, you're going to want to throw it kind of right around where I was just looking. And so the sticky flare will allow the ticks to do exactly what happened off at the campsite, where the ticks will wind up just killing themselves. But over here, if you don't have a sticky flare, you're going to want to take down this tick first, and then as you head up on the stairs over here, you're going to actually want to throw a flare right off the balcony of the lighthouse here. You're going to want to kind of just bank it off the floor, and what's going to happen is the ticks are going to follow it and potentially try to jump after it, or they're just going to kind of stand there and look at the flare instead of actually trying to kill you in the process. And so over here with the dead soldier, we can now find the 4-crown 50 cal. Now at this point, you won't have very much ammo for the 50 cal, so you'll want to pick up the 50 cal before you loot the soldier, in hopes that you might get some 50 cal ammo from him. Now next up, we're going to be coming on over to another safe house here, just off at Kalkbretet, which is excellent because then you have the access to Viskendetsborg over there, that little circle building. And that's going to be a great looting location, just like Nyhamnen and the camp that we found in the first place. So you're just going to want to, again, follow the coastline to limit the amount of enemies that can get at you and fight you. And actually along this route, it's another one of those routes that has 0 machine spawns in the area, so it's a really kind of tame portion after you've just finished wrecking all those doggos back at Arkelstorp. Now here at Calcbritet, you're going to want to come into the safe house, and actually inside the safe house you can pick yourself up a nice little collectible just on the shelf. But after that, you're going to want to come over to this kind of midpoint in the road going up the mountain here, and this is where we're going to wind up picking up our first 5-crown weapon. It's going to be a 5-crown clock, so it's going to be a sidearm, and luckily enough, this is going to be a gun that you have a ton of ammunition stocked up for at this point. This is going to be a huge boost to your early game because you're going to be able to gather ammunition for it really, really easily. Now, the only hard part about this area is that there are tons of really strong machine spawns, so you're going to want to be as stealthy as possible. If you wind up finding any machines that are directly on these police cars, you have a couple options here. So you can either try to lure them away utilizing a radio, you can try to distract them utilizing flares, or you can do that quit to menu trick just to get rid of their spawns and hope that they don't respawn in that exact location. But after that, you've scored yourself the easiest 5-crown to get in the game. Now, I've decided on all of these weapons because none of them are tied to any sort of missions. So they all will be spawned into your world no matter what, and they will not wreck any sort of mission chains if you pick them up. So these weapons are completely safe to grab, and in my case, I had a couple tanks here, so I had to just kind of stealth my way out. But then next up, we're coming on over to our next safe house. This is going to be another church safe house, and when you get here, there is another chance for machine spawns, but luckily enough, as this is a safe house, you can just kind of run inside and try to avoid combat as best as possible. I managed to find just one doggo here, so I was pretty okay. The other doggos in the area didn't notice me because I was utilizing silencers. And yeah, once you get in here, it's a super easy safe house to obtain. And then after that, the safe house is really, really great because we have another looting location. The whole city of Hagaboda here. Hagaboda is kind of like Ostervik, in which case it is a big city, so there are tons of chances for loot. But the nice thing about Hagaboda is that it doesn't have that big city lag that Ostervik has. So it's actually a lot smoother when it comes to looting than Ostervik itself. So then after that, we're going to be coming on over to the radio station for our next weapon pickup. But first thing, we're going to be coming up and through the mountain range here. This is the more easy route to take because a lot of times if any machines catch you outside of the church, they won't follow you as far into the forest because you'll break line of sight. But the only thing, again, trying to show you guys a run that isn't completely perfect just so that you can kind of understand how to adapt to the scenarios that you're going to go through here. There were tons of machine spawns in this area. This was only the second time out of 7 tries for this run where I found a ton of machine spawns here, so it's pretty infrequent that you'll wind up finding a whole ton of enemies here. But if you do wind up finding enemies, then just take it a little bit slow, a little bit stealthy, and you can come on over to the radio station here for your next weapon. So in this cabin, this is where we're going to grab an SMG. A 4-crown SMG, and it's going to be a great pickup for the early game. So in this shed there are a couple ticks, so again we're just going to want to deal with them in the same way we've dealt with all of the previous ticks, just by utilizing flares to get them out in the open and distracted so that then we can take them down really, really easily. So this is an HP5, which is a 9mm SMG. And this is a great weapon to have early on in the game because 9mm SMG ammo is incredibly frequent, so you're going to be able to farm up tons of ammo for it in the long run. I was kind of unlucky in my drops along the way, so I didn't have too much 9mm SMG ammo, but having this gun in the beginning of the game is going to be super useful for you dudes. So next up, we're going to come on over to the safe house just right by the radio station and pick up another tape cassette because it's just an easy pickup of free experience. Then what we're going to do is we're going to head kind of along the outside of the water of the little lake here, and we're going to head off to another safe house along the way. We're picking up all of these safe houses along the way just in case if something goes wrong. They're kind of like a safety net in case if you die along the way, so that way you don't need to burn your adrenaline if you don't want to, and you can just simply respawn at the safe house over here. As well, safe houses are a great opportunity to get just a little bit of experience and catch your breath. So the skill point that I spent this on this time was the stamina recharge. Again, just aiming to maximize my mobility as much as I possibly could here as I went through the route. Now, coming to the last safe house of this entire route, we're going to be coming on over Stenhaga, and the route we're going to take is this kind of funny curvy S shape over the mountain. So basically, we're going to curve our way up onto the mountaintop around this area, and then we're going to curve around the little buildings that you see there, so that way we can kind of follow the incline of the mountain, so that way we aren't falling off a cliff edge, because Stenhaga has some pretty steep cliffs that will actually one-shot you if you wind up falling off the cliff. So we're just basically utilizing the terrain and the topography to make sure that we are taking a safe route around the mountain here, one that's not going to result in too much fall damage or any fall damage along the way. So I was pretty unlucky this time, and I wound up having a whole bunch of hunters spawned right around this safe house. So I just threw off a radio really quickly to kind of get them to come away from the safe house so that I could at least just unlock it. So you will potentially find some very high level machines. This whole area is not designed for early game players, so you'll want to be super stealthy and super tricky about the way you go about things here, just to make sure that you aren't getting caught out by a million really high powered machines. Now for the next spot we're going to be coming to, it's going to be the next 5 crown weapon. So we're going to be coming just to the entrance of this kind of weird little bit of terrain here. And at this spot, we're actually going to be picking up a 5 crown Magnus. So as you notice, the hunters managed to come back. They lost their interest in the radio, so I had to kind of make my way past them, just utilizing a flare to distract them. And then after that, I was able to just run up the hill really quickly here. But hopefully for you guys, there just won't be any machines in the area at all, so that you can come through here really easily without any sort of risk. Now we're going to come into this building on the right-hand side of the kind of strange fortress-looking building that you'll find here. It's an FOA facility. And basically in this building, there is a door on the left side that you can open up that doesn't require lockpicking or anything like that. And inside the building, you're going to be able to find yourself the 5 crown Magnus. This is going to be actually one of the most powerful guns that you're going to get in the game. The only thing about the Magnus is that it has a really low magazine side. So the idea is to have the clock for a really large magazine, and then the Magnus for some really awesome quick kills. And if any of you guys don't know what quick kills are, just check out my channel, and I've done a lot of kind of in-depth walkthroughs on what quick kills are and how you can kind of pull them off here in Generation Zero. So next up, after that, we're going off to our last weapon location here. So we're going to head around the left-hand side of the building as you exit the small green building there. And when you come around that side, you're going to want to head down the hill and over towards this little house on the coast. At this house, you are going to find a 4 crown 12 gauge shotgun, which again you should have a decent amount of ammo for, considering you picked up that dilapidated shotgun ages ago. Now, coming here is pretty treacherous. There is a tank with a railgun attachment, so it's not going to be like the normal rocket flinging tanks that you've potentially seen or come across so far. This guy is a little bit more deadly than them in his own way, considering the fact that he can attack you from a really far distance. So you're going to want to be as stealthy as possible coming up to this little house. And then once you get here, you're going to want to kind of go right underneath the little patio on the outside here, and that's where you're going to find the 4-crown 12 gauge. So if any of you guys have had a bit of a hard time maybe following this route so far, it's all going to be written up down in the description below, so that way you don't have to seek back through the video for any specific locations. But I thought it would be really good to just kind of show the method of getting to each of these locations and going really in depth with this, so that way if you're a new player, this will be really, really easy for you to follow, and I could fit in all of these different tips and tricks along the way. And if you're a high level player, I really advise that you try out doing something like this. It's a lot of fun and it's a huge challenge. I managed to make it here with 0 deaths, but I got really close a bunch of times. Out of the 7 tries that I gave to this run, I died probably about 3 times in the span of those 7 tries. So it's not exactly a high level challenge, but it can definitely be incredibly tricky, and definitely it will test your skills. Now, after you're done completing this run, you can come back to Ittervik and start your game fresh with an absolutely incredible loadout for the beginning of the game, or you can stick around here and take down the tank with the railgun, which I'm going to show off how I went about taking down the tank with the railgun just after this here. But I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I know it was a long one, but hopefully it was super helpful and super useful for you dudes. If you did manage to make it to this point, maybe post up a "my dude" comment in the comment section down below just to let me know that you made it this far. And if you do take on this run, let me know how it goes in the comments down below. But anyway, for now, I've been Tenebris. You've been awesome. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.